I decided to make a second video for our fourth class session, partly because the first of these two videos for the fourth session was almost exclusively about grammar and syntax and formatting, which for some of you might be fascinating and for some of you might be quite dull. I find it interesting. I wouldn't say I find it thrilling, but I wanted to make this second video a little bit more conceptual and about some of the themes and subjects rather than just about formatting. So I'll be talking about some of our readings, the three that we are all reading for September 22nd, so that we're assigned this week, this Tuesday, the 15th, and we'll be writing and talking about up until the 22nd. Daw, Midge, and Jensen. And these are all in the Twining section of the book. So I found that these three essays take a really close look at language play and analyzing language and really breaking down language and stories to their bare elements. And two of the three also follow a formula or a shape of lists or points or numbers, so breaking a story or an essay into sections. So I wanted to focus specifically on, I love all three of these essays, which is why I assigned them, and I think they speak well with each other. I wanted to focus on Jensen's essay on page 204. And just to point out that in many of these essays that we've read so far in this book, up to this point in time, many of the essays feel stream of consciousness, or as I mentioned this phrase last week, following the mind on the page, following the unraveling of a thought or the pursuing of a question or inquiry. And they have this quality or the tone of searching, seeking, an unfinished or unanswered question. And I found that Toni Jensen's Women in the Fracklands is a little more tight and composed and premeditated, and in a way that feels like a very complicated puzzle, very carefully fit together. And what I mean by this is that in each section, and they're numbered, so Women in the Fracklands, On Water, Land, Bodies, and Standing Rock, Toni Jensen. Each section is numbered 1, 2, 3 Roman numerals. And that's, at this point, I find to be a pretty common form. So that's not necessarily experimental, but very effective and very interesting. In each section, she also includes a pattern of wordplay and analyzing or defining certain words. So she repeats this pattern in each section. And that's why I find it to be a really tightly woven, if we are to bring it back to the introduction, this essay, Jensen's, seems to me to resemble that kind of basket that the editors described, the basket so tightly woven that it could hold water. In that Jensen follows this very similar pattern in each of these sections in her essay. And just to give you a sample of what I mean, and this will become more clear to you as you read, or if you've already read, you might recognize this. First of all, it's interesting that she uses second person point of view, and we can talk in the written document and also in class in our synchronous session, why we think that she chose second person point of view and what effect this has on the reader and what effect it has on the content. I have opinions about it, but I'd love to hear yours. And then the pattern that she seems to follow is pointing out a visual detail or a word or an image, often birds, and then defining either historical or cultural definitions or ideas about this image. Magpie Road, and then she unravels this. Robins sit on branches or peck the ground. A group of robins is called a riot. And then she expands on that definition and sees how is this relevant to the violent, dark scenes and cultures and crimes that she's witnessing, and sexism and trafficking and Standing Rock riots and protests. So she takes this image of robins and the definition, a group of robins is called a riot, and then she expands the context. This seems wrong at every level except taxonomic. Robins are ordinary, everyday, general public sort of birds. They seem least likely of all birds to riot. So that's in one section, section 1. In another section, section 3, on page 207, she defines arrangement, the word arrangement. In a hotel in Texas, skipping ahead a little bit, men from the field who have an arrangement with management. An arrangement can mean flowers in a vase. An arrangement can mean these men pay for nothing, not even a room. In the morning, the parking lot is all trash can. So she focuses on one word or one image and then expands, defines, and relates that word to her specific experience here in the Fracklands. I'll pick one more. Sorry, Tintin, you have to go down. Here's one more. Okay, page 208, the next page. She defines fly, but she starts with the image of a man zipping up his fly, and then she defines the terminology fly comes from England, where it's first referred to as the flap on a tent, as in tie down your tent fly against the high winds, and don't step on the partridge nest as you tie down your fly. So she brings this definition back to the specific things that she's witnessed here in the Fracklands, and then what's the cultural, political, economic consequence of this image. One more moment in the essay that I wanted to talk about. Page 211. Here's a paragraph that seems to stand out in terms of its form, syntax, diction, imagery. The way that the paragraph is constructed feels really different and stands out from the rest of the piece. It breaks the pattern. And it's a paragraph of witness. And it's the first full paragraph on 211. The whole paragraph is short sentences, and she begins each sentence with a word of witness, a verb of witness. See, and again, this is all written in second person point of view. So is she speaking to herself because she's writing about herself in second person, or is she speaking to everyone globally, nationally? Is she speaking to only the readers? She says, see the water cannon on the bridge. Listen to the sheriff's department men. See the dog cages. See the overflow. See it all overflow. See the journalists arrested. See how science newly quantifies, etc., etc. See the water extinguish. See the children seeing it. And this paragraph comes in the midst of a seeming interview where the speaker is being interviewed by maybe a man, a public defender, a policeman. It's hard to tell, but it seems like a defensive paragraph representing the voice of the journalist and the witness and the writer. So it's a really interesting moment in the essay. So I wanted to talk about a few of those things. Maybe we can touch upon those themes in the interactive Google Doc, and hopefully we'll have time as well in our synchronous class session. This concludes the second part of video number 4, 4B.